We got an opportunity to catch up with head coach Clint Kubiak on Wednesday, and trust and believe it did not disappoint. A lot of great stuff that the head coach went over, and you'll hear it coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for Thursday, February 26, 2026.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcast network. We're very proud of that. We're also very proud of the fact that this show continues to grow each and every day. That's because of your consistent support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. You want to give him a follow or give him a shout out yourself, you can hit him up on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as you normally do, and we normally have calls and texts, 707-654-4693. I said normally because we won't have any calls or texts on today's show. I want you to hear all of Clint Kubiak and what he had to say on Wednesday. Really good stuff. For multiple years now, we've had an opportunity to catch up with not only the Raiders GM off to the side as the local media, but also the head coach. And I know that's always been a really big hit when I bring it to the show. So I want to make sure that you're able to hear all of what Clint Kubiak had to say on Wednesday as we met with him. He did not talk at the podium, but met with us to the side, and it was some really good stuff that he went over in a really intimate type setting. So I want you to be able to soak all that in. So you'll hear that coming up in segment number 2 and segment number 3. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes of the day, and really just more about the buzz that's going on at the Scouting Combine, as now there's 3 days in the books. We have today, Thursday, Friday. Of course, there'll be activities going on at Lucas Oil Stadium coming up on Saturday and Sunday, but I'll already be back in Vegas, right? As soon as the radio week is over, as soon as my final show is over on Friday, I'm right back on that bird, and I'm headed back to Vegas, go get my hair cut, and get back to the Pacific time zone, the best time zone, man. The West Coast is the best coast for multiple reasons, but I'll tell you what, man, this time out here, this time zone is not for me. Not to mention the cold, but on Wednesday, it wasn't very cold either. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. Again, just want to talk about the buzz that is going on around Radio Row. And, of course, the first few days, a lot of the conversations was about Max Crosby and was he going to be traded? Was he not going to be traded? You know, how do the Raiders feel about him? How does Max feel about the Raiders? And so that conversation kind of died down on Wednesday, which was great. It was great to be able to talk about the draft prospects. It was great to talk about the 10 draft picks that the Raiders have, all the extra salary cap space that they have, and be able to talk to guys like Mark Ross, who have been in the Giants organization in the front office and won multiple Super Bowl rings. Talk to my guy Emery Hunt, just do a little bit of, draft talk, breaking down Fernando Mendoza, other quarterbacks, other position groups. Like, it was really good to have those kind of conversations, and it really wasn't about Max on Wednesday. Not that it's not important, not that that's not a very important subject, obviously, but knowing that there's way more to this team and building this roster than just one player, even a great player like Max Crosby. So plus, I feel like John Spytek said what he said at the podium on Tuesday when he said he anticipates Max being a Raider in 2026, talked about him being an elite player. Yes, he said that he's always listening, which kept the door open a little bit on Max Crosby and if he could or not be there. And you'll hear this from Clint Kubiak coming up in segment number 2. He was asked about Max Crosby as well. And let's just put it like this. He's really excited about working with him, really excited to have him on the roster and being a Raider. So a little spoiler alert from Clint Kubiak, what he had to say. Again, you'll hear from him coming up in segment number 2 and 3. Also, I was talking to an NFL insider on Wednesday about the Max Crosby situation. I said, well, what are you thinking? What are you hearing? And he told me straight up that the sense that he got from talking to people inside the Raiders building, this is just one guy, one NFL insider that, like I said, I know and I've talked to, and I talked to for quite a while on Wednesday. He said that the sense he got is that this whole Max Crosby thing was just going to blow over. And that could be for multiple reasons. One, it's going to blow over because they really want him to be a Raider, which is what I believe, that they truly do want him to be a Raider. And I think in his heart of hearts, he wants to be a Raider as well. 2, they're not getting the kind of response that they were hoping to get as far as, a lot of draft capital in return or a big, return on investment when it comes to Max Crosby, as it's been put out there that, multiple first-round picks and an impact player. And apparently maybe that is the case. They haven't got that kind of offer yet. Could that change? Sure. But, until it does, right, the Raiders, and I mentioned it on Wednesday's show, the Raiders aren't just going to give him away. He's too good of a player, too much of an impactful player, and with a really good team could even make bigger impacts than he makes now with the silver and black. But again, they're not just going to give him away. So the sense that this guy got was that the Raiders as an organization feels like this is all going to blow over, and Max Crosby will be a Raider in 2026, which is basically on par with what I've been saying the whole time when I keep saying anyone who asks me, and trust and believe, plenty of people asking me. I'll be on Unsportsmanlike this morning with Evan Cohen and Chris Kent. No, you know what? Evan Cohen's not on. I think they're traveling. So anyway, whoever's on Unsportsmanlike this morning is actually going to be who I'm going to be on with, talking about Max Crosby. On Friday, Clinton Yates from Clinton and Friends on ESPN Radio, they're going to have me on. Obviously, they'll be talking about Max Crosby. There is a lot of different people that have interviewed me on Radio Row talking about Max Crosby and talking about the silver and black. So, again, it just kind of really feels like this is, when it's all said and done, Max will be in silver and black in 2026. Also, some more buzz from Radio Row at the Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. How about the wide receivers that could be on the move? Brian Thomas Jr. from Jacksonville, former first-round pick out of LSU. Really good wide receiver his rookie year. Last year, not so much. And so there's some rumors and reports that he could be on the trade block. Of course, they have Travis Hunter coming back from his injury in the year number 2. They traded for Jacoby Myers. They gave him a contract extension. So a lot of folks believe Brian Thomas Jr. could be made available. I think he's a really good wide receiver. He's a really good young man. He just struggled in a major way in year 2 in Jacksonville. So I don't know what they'd want for him. Again, he's a former first-round pick, so I'm sure that's where they're going to start. But he did not have a very good year last year, and it's only year 2. So really, honestly, they probably should just hold on to him, which they probably will. But that's, again, some of the buzz at the Scouting Combine. Jalen Waddle in Miami, another guy that has been anticipated could be on his way out of there, only because Miami is having some type of almost a purge of their roster. That's why a lot of folks have talked about Alec Ingold. Could he end up being available? Could the Raiders bring him back, be a fullback in Clint Kubiak's system, knowing that Clint Kubiak normally has a fullback in his system? But Miami, they seem like they're kind of on that, like I said, purge type situation when it comes to the roster. They know that they're not where they need to be, and now that Jeff Hafley is the head coach there, and Ian Cunningham, the GM, trying to turn this roster around. So maybe Jalen Waddle's available. I'd be very interested in him if he was made available. Just don't know if that's going to happen. A.J. Brown from the Eagles, sounds like he could be on the move. I'm out on that one. No thanks. He's not a guy that needs to be inside the Raiders locker room. I don't think that they need that. And DK Metcalf, same thing. Right, a guy in Pittsburgh who they just traded for last year. They just gave him a contract extension. I know they have a new head coach in Mike McCarthy. One guy I was talking to from Pittsburgh on Wednesday said that they were going to go get another wide receiver to pair with DK Metcalf. And another guy I talked to said there's a chance that I think DK Metcalf could actually be traded. I would be very hesitant to think that that could happen. But, I mean, these guys know better than me because they cover the team on the daily. As far as quarterbacks go, Kirk Cousins, he's going to be released, so he's going to be available. Any team that wants to pick him up, I'm thinking that the Vikings are going to end up with him. Maybe the Steelers if Aaron Rodgers doesn't return, but I think that Aaron Rodgers will return. He's another quarterback that's out there available. Kyler Murray and Tua Tagovailoa could be made available by way of trade in Miami and also Arizona. If nobody picks them up by way of trade, maybe they could be released. And then old friend Derek Carr. Sounds like that there's a good chance that he's going to come out of retirement and potentially play with the Vikings. Matter of fact, I have a Vikings guy that wants me on his show later on today to talk about Derek Carr, because as he walked by me and said, your old quarterback headed to Minnesota, and he said it with a lot of confidence. So I don't know what he knows. I don't know what he's been hearing, but he wants me on the show to talk about Derek Carr. So we'll, TBD, I guess, on that situation. But it sounds like there's a good chance that he could be coming out of retirement. I know I saw a tweet from JT the Brick saying that he said 30 seconds after Derek Carr retired that he was going to come back. And so the way he's saying it with confidence, maybe he's hearing something as well. I know him and Derek are pretty close. So who knows? Again, not saying that Derek should return to the Raiders. I don't think that that's a good situation with the quarterback incoming. But it sounds like there's a good chance that he's going to come out of retirement. Some team, whoever wants him, is going to have to trade for him because the Saints still own his contract, own his rights. But it sounds like that's a good possibility that could happen. And it's also very reflective on this year's quarterback draft class not being a very strong one. So that's kind of the news and notes from the Scouting Combine on Wednesday. Of course, we've got a couple more days here in Indianapolis before we head back to Las Vegas, but definitely want you to hear from Clint Kubiak. So part one of the conversation that we had on Wednesday at a little private location, very intimate location, you'll hear that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors we have here on the show. And the first one is Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, it's a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you to people who actually fit what you're looking for, skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post, you'll actually get the right candidate. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. All listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now. Support the show, saying you heard it here on the Locked On Raiders podcast. Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Again, Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? It's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. I also want to tell you about HomeChef. As the new year gets going, and it is going fast and furious, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines. And dinner, that's a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. And that's where HomeChef comes in. And I'll be honest with you, I wish this week here in Indianapolis, I had HomeChef. I had a really good dinner on Tuesday night, and that was about it. Everything else has been like ham and cheese sandwiches. Of course, it's been Swiss cheese because that's the way to roll. And just little knickknacks here because, well, I've been so busy. It's been early mornings and late nights. So HomeChef would be perfect. Meals come ready to fit your schedule. 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. Over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Everything arrives pre-portioned. There's less prep, less mess, and no wasted food, and saves time and money. HomeChef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. For a limited time, HomeChef is offering all listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive that free dessert. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to jump right into the conversation, part 1 of the conversation we had with Raiders head coach Clint Kubiak on Wednesday. Really good stuff. He did not go to the podium, but he met with a handful of us local media members. Really, really good stuff. I think you'll appreciate what you hear from the first-time head coach. Here's Clint Kubiak, our conversation with him. Here's part 1 of that.
The role here now as a head coach, are you noticing a change, from your perspective, being here previously and now being as a head coach?
Yeah, obviously it is different, but it's not different in the fact that, we're put stat together before on an offensive side. Now we're working with the team. Being here at the Combine, getting to work a little closer with the GM, but it's other than that, it's just being here. The job is to get to know the players, so kind of just taking it one step at a time that way.
Clint, how much time are you spending right now? I know you're drinking out of a fire hose, but watching film, analyzing the guys you have, does that consume a lot?
Yeah, that's really been something I've been spending a lot of time on lately. Going back through last year's season, watching individual players tape. Even digging into free agents, and all the while now talking to the draft picks and meeting them. So really using my day to watch the Raiders tape and using my nights to do the draft right now.
Rob Lynn has been assistant here for quite some time, and you promoted him to defensive coordinator. What went into that decision, and kind of like what stood out to you when he was interviewing for position?
Yeah, that was interesting how it came to be, because I didn't know Rob going into it. John Spytek, spoke so highly of him when I first got hired. I knew Joe Woods really well. Joe spoke really highly of Robbie. I had some people that I wanted to talk to, but in my short time with Robbie, I was just extremely impressed with his knowledge, with obviously the backing that he had in the building, the relationships that he built. And then when it came time to interview, Robbie was impressive. He had a plan. He knew what he wanted to do. He knew the type of players he needed to do it with, and it just revealed itself to me that he was the right guy for the job. So really excited to work with him.
And how do you envision his scheme to look? Because he like, even though he's worked under Patrick Graham, Brian Flores, Mike McDonald, just wonder what are you expecting his scheme and how he runs the defense? How you think it's going to look?
Yeah, well, I do see us being a base 3-4 team. See us being able to play 4 down as well. I think Robbie can be very multiple with his fronts. Obviously coming from working with Mike, working in Miami with Flores, he's got a lot of really impressive influences, but he also has, he has his own identity as well. So, we're getting to work on that part of the puzzle right now, and talking personnel this time of year. But I'm really excited about really more of the person more than anything.
I was wondering, have you ever had time to think about where you envision Geno Smith with the roster move and your roster moving forward? How do you envision his future? So
well, looking at all options right now. Watching Geno play last year, obviously very familiar with what he had done before. We're just kind of, putting it all on the table right now, just trying to see every possible avenue we can go next year at quarterback, and he's definitely one of those options we're considering.
Have you had any conversations with him since you've been hired?
Very briefly. Built a relationship with him last year at this time. We have spoken a little bit.
How much are you leaning on your scouting department right now, obviously coming into such a brand new situation? How much have you felt like you needed them in terms of evaluating the guys coming in so late?
Yeah, very, very heavily. Those guys, they've already set the table. They've done all the work. They're catching me up, and they've been phenomenal. John's staff is really impressive. Brian Stark, the college staff, the pro staff, those guys are on it. So, been working really closely with them every day.
The way this process played out, you're on a Super Bowl run, you're celebrating, and you're jumping right into the staff. Have you had time to appreciate the reaching this level and getting this job and everything else with your family and all that?
No. But that's okay, because it's a real blessing to get to jump right back into it. I was talking to my wife the other day. I was just looking at a few pictures from the Super Bowl and just like, man, did that really just happen? That was now I'm seeing some Seattle coaches and scouts here in the hallways. It's like, man, I don't work with you guys anymore. So it all happened really fast. But that's the NFL now. If you play that late in the season, and then the calendar just starts right up again with the combine. So it's a good problem to have.
How exciting is it to have Rick Dennison as the offensive line coach with all the experience that he brings, and obviously been with you multiple times?
Yeah, that was a top hire right there to get Rico from Seattle. Just a phenomenal teacher, phenomenal coach. He's done it for a long time at a high level. There's an identity that his offensive lines play with, play style that I'm really excited for him to bring that here to Las Vegas.
What is that identity?
Yeah, well, it's a smart, hard-nosed, dependable, and we have a long way to go to develop that here, but that's what the spring is for, and looking forward to mid to early April to get started with our guys.
You have traditionally liked a very athletic offensive line. I don't know if do you anticipate continuing that? The previous staff moved JPJ to guard because they wanted to be more athletic, even at center. When you look at him, where do you see him?
Yeah, well, I see a versatile guy, a guy that can play guard and center. Where he's going to be for us, that's to be seen. But the fact that he can do multiple spots is really exciting. I really like JPJ's play style. I like turning on that Chicago game and see him being physical and playing through the echo of the whistle. That's the kind of mindset I want our guys to play with.
You mentioned that you've been able to take a look at the tape. The Raiders have made a lot of investment on the offensive line with draft picks over the last few years. When you see that group, I know it's been a struggle and there's been some injuries, but do you see something to work with the current players that are on the roster?
I do. I see, obviously you had some stability at both tackle spots. They got some young picks and with JPJ, with Caleb. It's a work in progress. Still learning all the guys. Still kind of catching up on last season and what they've done. But what I do know is that we're gonna have we have a clear teaching style. I've been around whether it was New Orleans or Seattle or Minnesota. I've seen Rick Dennison get the best out of his guys, and the main thing is that we get them all playing together. and that comes with teaching our system. So the quicker we can get them up to date with the language, with the verbiage, with our play style, and the more they can get reps together and communicate together, then that's when they start improving. So I do like the guys that we got, and we're always looking to get better.
Just curious on the 3-4 defense, was that something that you want, or was it something that Robbie said, hey, I feel like with what we have, that's the best approach to take?
I think both. Yeah, both. Yeah, we're in this thing together. Just from his background in Baltimore, he's been in a lot of schemes, but he has a concise vision on who he wants to be. But as we get into free agency and the draft, and who our players are and what they do best, that's what we're going to eventually evolve to. But you got to have a starting point. And that starting point to me would be a base 3-4.
You just kind of touched on it, but why is it so important to you to make sure that before you have to make all these decisions, obviously with free agency and making sure you get the right draft picks, like making sure that the people in the building are being coached properly and developed properly, to address needs that you might not even have to go and get because you have it in the building? Yeah,
I mean that's what we're working on right now, is just getting to know the pieces that we have so we can identify our needs for free agency. Just knowing this roster first before we can dive into what holes we got to fill. So that's really, really important, and we're working through that right now with the coaches. All the while being here at the combine, so you kind of do it all at once. But the great thing is, Spies allowed us to hire some really veteran coaches that have done this before. It's not their first rodeo, and we've done this together quite a bit with Rick, with Andrew. So there's some guys that have been in the fire together, and that really helps things when you're on a short timetable like we are now.
John made it really clear yesterday there's going to be, this isn't a rush to try to 1 year turnaround. They're going to build the right way. As a new coach, first year coach, how refreshing is it to know your GM's out there ahead of the curve talking about the reality of this isn't going to be a 1 year turnaround?
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page there. But we also understand the NFL is what have you done for me today? So that we have a long way to go. However, we got to make sure that we set ourselves up for success too. Like the expectation is not to just kind of get to this thing slowly. Like in a perfect world, you want to win now, but what John talks about when he preaches is getting the right people in the building. I think that was a great start last year with his draft and the type of people and the character that he brought into the building. And when you can build with young, high character guys that work hard, that's going to give us the best shot.
Obviously, when you're on a Super Bowl run like you were last year, doesn't give you a whole lot of time to watch college football on Saturdays. So, kind of curious where your level of understanding or insight on Fernando Mendoza was, and where it is now, and what have you been able to glean from what you've been watching?
Very little exposure throughout the year, but in the last couple of weeks, got to catch up, watch the man play. Excited to keep learning about him, and it's not just me, it's our whole coaching staff, our quarterback coach, and I want all of our coaches to get involved, especially at that position. I want everybody's input, but obviously he's been successful, had a lot of success last year. He's won a national championship, and that's what you want, is you want a winner. And we're still in the process of going through his whole season, of getting to know who he is, and we'll learn more about him this week at the combine.
What are the traits that best fit what you want in a quarterback for your system?
Things that stick out to me is decision making, timing, and accuracy. No matter if it's the first pick or the last pick in the draft, that's what we're looking for. If you're the head of the organization, you got to be the best decision maker on and off the field. Timing is just getting the ball out on time to our playmakers, not hold on to the ball, and accuracy is as explained. So those three things are really important to me.
John and Tom, when they were in Tampa, John would bring voluminous amounts of information to Tom every week, and he would pour through it. John prefers the term thorough more than analytical, but it's analytical, and you are that way. In the interview process with Tom and John, was that something that just clicked, that you guys are kind of all on the same page on how you process football?
Yeah, no, I think that stood out, and that's where the league's going right now. It's just about how do you filter that? Get the guys that are working behind the scenes, and they give me a presentable one-page summary of all these data points that you're talking about, but just squeezing down the information and working together with that team to tell them, hey, what's important to me? This is what I'd like you to look for. And you just want as much as possible, because at the end of the day, you got to make a decision. You want to have the most data to make that decision, and then you pair that with what you see, and the real answer lies somewhere in between. Having a really good, analytical team in the background, I think is really helpful.
So there you go. You hear him talking about his role, getting to know players, talked about the staff, the Raiders defense moving to a base 3-4. I still believe it's going to be very multiple, but you're going to need a dominant nose tackle, right? Robbie Leonard and his influences, how he got the job. For anyone who thinks that it was just a Max Crosby influence, no, there's multiple influences on Robbie Leonard getting that job, and Clint Kubiak also talking with him and getting blown away by him. He's got the Mike McDonald and Brian Flores influences, obviously Patrick Graham as well, and then Rick Dennison, offensive line coach, big-time hire, voluminous. How about voluminous? Hondo used that word, voluminous. I was sitting right behind him when he said that. I was like, whoa, let me write that one down. Voluminous. I don't know when I'm going to use that, but I'm going to use it one day and just to use it. Voluminous. So anyway, that was part one of the conversation. Clint Kubiak and a bunch of the local media that surrounds the Raiders on the daily. Part two of that conversation is coming up. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about another great sponsor we have here on the show, and that is FanDuel. If you ever want to experience the NBA Finals live and in person, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. And here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be in for a shot to win a finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. So you ready? You're already looking at the board. You're thinking about what teams can make a deep run. Perfect time to lock in. Don't know if you saw the Pistons and the Thunder game on Wednesday night. Really good game, except for the Thunder didn't have all their stars playing. But that could have easily been an NBA Finals preview. So now, not only can your pick cash, but it could also send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to get into part 2 of the conversation that we had with head coach Clint Kubiak on Wednesday. Really good stuff. Before we get into that, though, I do want to thank you so much for making this the first listen of the day. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Really good stuff. Part 2 of our conversation with Raiders head coach Clint Kubiak.
I was curious, what do you think are some of the mistakes you may have seen other teams make in terms of bringing in a young rookie quarterback, development? And what do you think some of the mistakes that's kind of like maybe hurt that player's development? Because Spytek told us yesterday how sometimes for young guys, it's maybe their struggles could be more of the organization they compare to the players. So I was wondering what mistakes you think teams have made like in the past or what you've seen that has hurt a young guy's development to the league.
I can't speak to those teams. I will say that, the success of the quarterback is the success of the team. Playing good defense, special teams, running the football on offense. But I think any of these QBs that succeed, they're going to succeed. They would have succeeded regardless of myself or the organization. Like great quarterbacks, they just find a way to get it done. They don't make excuses. They find a way to bring people together. They find a way to get the best out of their players. That's obviously our job as coaches. But great, the cream rises to the top. So you're looking for who is that individual that can find a way, no matter the circumstances.
Are you guys going to hire a quarterback coach? And what do you see Mike McCoy's role being?
We're still working through finalizing the staff. Mike McCoy has a very large role in helping me day to day run the team. Just being another voice, former head coach, obviously a former quarterback coach. That's I think he's coached 6 first-round draft picks is what he told me. But Mike's going to have a role in coaching. He's going to have a role in administration. He's going to have a role with every day-to-day thing that goes with being a head coach. And this time of year, it's really more about we're putting schedules together, leaning on him with things he's done before. And he's just my right-hand man right now with every part of the team.
Your offenses have always kind of adapted to the personnel that you have, but a lot of times you have a fullback. How important is that fullback position?
Yeah, it is important. You got to find the right guy, and if you can find that guy, then he becomes a big part of your offense. You know, if they are harder to find. So that's the fun part right now, especially in the draft, is seeing who's available and who we can develop, free agent wise as well. You know, would love to play with a fullback, but you also got to play with your best 11. So we're gonna be on the lookout for one for sure.
You are very much built your offenses on two backs. Obviously, you've got Ashton. Would love your thoughts and analysis on him. And then what are you going to be looking for in that second back?
Yeah, definitely want to have a two-man show there, guys that can share the load. It's a long season. You don't want to put all the carries and targets on one guy. So right now we're identifying guys that are available here in the draft, identifying free agents we might go after, looking at our own roster and seeing who can take that. But it is important that Genty has a wingman, and it's probably not going to be just one guy. So that'll be really important to identify.
When going through the tape from this past season, kind of like what stands out to you about Trey Tucker?
Yeah, what stands out to me about Trey is that he's very tough. I see him as a shorter guy at least, but he's in there blocking safeties, very unselfish. He's available. He's not missing games. Just the kind of the mindset that you want, regardless of position. So I really like his play style.
So this wild last couple of weeks that you've gone through and trying to figure all this out that you're doing right now, is there anything that has surprised you or kind of been like something you didn't expect maybe along the way that was like, oh, this was kind of an obstacle that I wasn't really prepared for? I've been really fortunate to be around a lot of head coaches on a lot of different teams. Grew up with one too. As of right now, nothing jumps out that way. But I got a lot of support. We got a lot of talented coaches around me to spread the work out, because that's what's really important, to hire good people and trust them to get their jobs done so that everybody can be the best at their area of expertise. So we're using our strengths of our staff right now. Along those lines, you're very young at head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, but you have veterans all throughout the staff, and you talked about kind of relying on those guys a little bit. Was that intentional to kind of have that experience around for you guys? Yeah,
it is, and obviously the idea is to hire the best guy for the job, but it is good to have a mix. But having veteran coaches is really, really important to me. Having Coach Dennison, having Al Holcomb on defense. We're still hiring people. We're still in the process of that. Hiring Joe DeCamillis, guys that have done it for a long time at a high level. But the young guys that we have interviewed and hired, they're there for a reason. So we got to start somewhere. And I want those young guys to be themselves, but then we're going to lean on the veteran leadership behind them.
Clint, has there been any surprises in a positive way? Maybe something you thought just from the outside, maybe this is going to be a big hole, and maybe you've gotten in and been pleasantly surprised, hey, maybe this isn't as bad as I thought certain things were?
Know that we signed up for a challenge, and really excited for that challenge. I think any team I've ever been on, you have expectations going into the year, and you're always pleasantly surprised by the people that are around you. So when I'm starting to look more at our roster and the guys I see, on tape, I'm really encouraged by the talent that we have. I'm also not naive enough to know, like, once the season starts, the things change. They change really quickly. The guys that we're counting on right now, they're really one play away from being on IR. So building depth in our team will be really important. And this time of year is so critical. Free agency, and then finding our draft picks that are gonna contribute to the Raiders for the next 10 to 12 years is really important.
When you're going into these combine interviews with these prospects, what's the biggest thing that you're looking for in terms of knowing about their personality or just their football acumen? Like, what's the biggest thing that you want to take from these interviews?
Yeah, I always look at, like, is this a person that I could coach? Is this a coachable person? When you're talking to them in the interview and you're bringing up their tape, do they have all the answers for you, or are they coachable? So you have an 18-minute window to kind of get into that and see what that person's like. So, hey, is this a person that can take coaching, or is this guy so hard-headed that he knows it all? That's one thing that really stands out right now, because Because once they're yours for a long time, and you got to make sure you can help them get better. And if they're not willing to get better because for whatever reason, then it's usually a person you want to stay away from.
On the back end of that too, do you notice that, with NIL culture, does it changing any of the kind of like their personalities when you're going into this? Or, I know Spytek said yesterday it kind of like illuminates character a little bit more. Do you notice that?
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting because, I've been a part of the transition of, from the old way to now, NIL, what it is now, and they're making more money now than they were, a few years ago. So I think what Spy said is really true, that these guys, now that they have money in their pocket, then it's not surprising what they're going to do once they get into your building. So I think that helps. But one thing that's unique is that these guys, a lot of guys bounce around from team to team, and because of that, sometimes they're not as developed in the weight room. For instance, you're going from place to place, or they don't have as much time on task in one system. So we're just trying to identify what those holes are. But that's our job as coaches, is to see what their strengths are and to eliminate those strengths.
Obviously, Max Crosby has been a little bit of a story here. What's your sense of that situation, and maybe the interactions that you guys have had with each other?
Yeah, it's a guy that we really want on our team. It's simple as that. We want Max. We want Max to be a Raider, and the few interactions I've had with him have been very very positive. Really excited about working with Max this year.
Clint, talking to people around the NFL about what it looks like here in the short time you've been here, they've commented that you've went out and gotten a lot of different people from different trees. And they mentioned how your dad didn't want yes men. He wanted people who had different ideas. And so when you look at your staff, did you use what your dad did and how you did it? And would you talk about that side of you that doesn't want yes men? You want the different trees to have the different input.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have a good mix. You want to have people that you have some work experience with, but you really want people that are better than you. You want better coaches, guys that can challenge you in a good way and enhance your offense and bring new ideas offensively and defensively. I think the experience I've had with those individuals that just want to be told what to do and tell you how good a job you're doing, those are usually the ones that are not going to be a part of the winning solution. So we're definitely looking for guys to help us grow.
When it's all said and done, what is the identity of a Clint Kubiak-led team?
Yeah, well, I knew this question was going to come up, and that's something that's really important for me to share with our team when we get together for the first time. So I don't want them to have to read about it, what our identity is going to be. I'd love them to watch some of the tape that we used in Seattle, but those are some discussions that would be really important to address the team day one.
Don't worry, they don't read what we write. You're fine. Put it on Twitter.
Cool. One more? Okay, yeah.
Looking at Ashton Genty, just like how excited are you to utilize him not as a pass catcher? That's one of the things that like he showed a lot of like positive signs with as a rookie, or as well as his ability to kind of go outside on his receiver. Just what stands out to you about that element of his game?
Yeah, he's a 3-down back. He should be able to help you in multiple ways: run the football, catching it, protecting. If you're going to be on the field on all 3 downs, then you got to have all 3 of those, and he has it. Really like to dive into his rookie season. He's going to be a major building block of our offense. But it's like I said in the first presser, it's going to be his success will be because his offensive line's playing well, because whoever that second back is running the ball well, because our quarterback's making good decisions. We want to bring the best out of Genty, but that comes with the team playing well as a whole. But he's got all the tools to be successful.
I was asked by my guy, Syntex Raider, to ask about the fullback position. So that's why I made sure I asked that question. And I promise you, Raider Nation, when I asked him that question, his face lit up. Got a big smile on his face. He loves to talk ball. He doesn't like to talk about a whole lot of other things, but he likes to talk ball. So if you get him into football questions, he's going to have plenty of answers. And a lot of folks said before he got hired, he's only going to give real short answers. He's not going to give you any kind of details. I just based off the last 25 minutes that you heard from him, clearly that's not correct, right? I loved his response about my question about identity. I want to tell my team that first. He said I knew that question was coming, and I just want to. I don't want them to read about it. I want them to hear it from someone else. I want them to hear it from me. When I share it with them, then I'll share it with you guys. Like, I thought that was great. I sure didn't get offended by that answer. I thought that was the best answer possible, right? And that just kind of lets you know, again, he's all about ball. Talking about guys, are they coachable? Something that he's trying to pick up from some of these guys here at the scouting combine. Talked about the NIL influence on some of these players, and of course, Max Crosby really want him on the team. So hopefully you enjoyed that as much as I did. It was a really good day on Wednesday here in Indianapolis. Coming up tomorrow, we'll close out the week really strong. We'll have more news and notes. We'll have more calls and texts, that's for sure. And, of course, we'll have plenty of conversation, whatever I pick up here at the Scouting Combine on this Thursday. We do have the Raiders Squad show later on this morning, 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. That would be, 10:30 to 11:30 Eastern time. Normally, I don't have to do that in my head, but I'm doing it because I'm in Indianapolis. So definitely tune in for that as well. We'll do that live from Radio Row. At least I'll be on Radio Row. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.